Hi, this is Amy from Good Food Unearthed. And with all of the reporting going on for coronavirus, I have another post that I'd like to share with you on my Ditch the Itch blog, which encourages people to think outside of the box and to try to find out what's really going on and what can work best for them health wise. Um, this this was written on Monday, March 30th, 2020. So please keep that in mind when I'm reporting um, any numbers. Ditch the fear mongering and open your eyes to the data right before you. Today on CBC Radio, I received the update on the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Canada and the number of deaths contributed to the virus. The media, the government, the health officials all seem adamant to make people fearful, to keep everyone in their homes, wondering when the restrictions on their personal freedoms will end. And make no mistake, once laws are put into place restricting the number of people who can gather together, when people are arrested under suspicion of going outside if they have a viral infection, when businesses are shut down by the government and heavy penalties, including prison time, are involved, personal freedoms are gone. When such extreme measures are taken, everyone should be wondering if they are warranted, but not only wondering, researching, doing our own due diligence. I admit that I am not a fan of stoking up fear, creating a police state, encouraging people to report on their neighbors, and shaming people if they are suspected of being harbingers of disease. We are better than that. My previous blog post hoped to shed some light on viruses, exposure, baseline health, and more. In this post, I am going to address the Canadian reporting of COVID-19 specifically and look at the data so that you can decide if the extreme measures being taken are warranted or not. I realize that not everyone has the same values that I do, and I believe that it is everyone's right to make their own choices. So, if you are watching this, then you would at least like to see the information I have to present. And I would ask you to then consider this information carefully the next time you hear the news report or talk about how long the COVID-19 measures will be in place, and to look at what all this can mean in the long term. Will this happen again? Would these measures ever be warranted? These are important things to look into because if it can happen once, it can happen again. If it is unwarranted, then we all need to be vigilant, much as we are vigilant about protecting our rights normally. We shouldn't let fear blind us. For those of you who have recently discovered whole food plant-based nutrition, you should be well aware that not everything the media reports and the government advises is based on facts. You should also be aware that not all doctors and scientists, that not what all doctors and scientists report is true. Most of the time, it is because all of these people either are unaware of the real facts or they have another agenda. Either way, you should take away from this that there are no gurus and that it is up to you to be aware. So let's look at what is going on here in Canada. According to the Globe and Mail, as of March 29, 2020, there were 6,250 identified cases of COVID-19. Of those, less than 438 people were in hospital, around 187 were in critical condition, and there have been 63 deaths associated with the virus. These numbers may seem like a lot, but let's take a look at the bigger picture. In 2018, there were a total of 283,207 reported deaths in Canada, according to Statistics Canada. The, the deaths per month went as follows. In January, 28,814 people died, which was about 960 deaths per day. In February, 24,061 deaths, or about 860 deaths per day. In March, 25,271 per month for that month, which was about 815 deaths per day. In April, 23,540 deaths, or about 785 deaths per day. And the number of deaths per month decreased down to 21,842 at its lowest in September. After that, the death rate increases again into the fall and winter. You will see why when we look at the leading causes of hospitalizations and deaths in Canada, but anyone could also make an educated guess that the reason the greatest number of deaths per month happen in January are in part because of the flu and cold season. Of these deaths, remember that total of 283,706 for the year, how many were due to infectious and parasitic diseases? 4,578. That is about 1.6% of total deaths. Let's break that down even further to see exactly what types of infections we're talking about. Other bacterial diseases account for the most at 2,527. Intestinal infectious diseases are the next ones at 884 deaths for that year, followed by viral hepatitis with 356 deaths, HIV 142, and this is where something like coronavirus would come in under other viral diseases at 135 deaths for the year. Tuberculosis at 84, certain zoonotic bacterial diseases at 2, etc. I have listed the most prevalent ones, but you can see the full list on Statistics Canada's website. If we look at that, we can see that other viral diseases accounts for 0.48% of total deaths in 2018. Many people who get infections do not die from infections, but from other comorbidities like heart disease, cancer, etc. Many people are worried about overloading the hospitals with COVID-19 patients. Well, so far, less than 500 people are in hospital. According to the Canadian Institute for Health Information, the top 5 reasons for hospitalization in Canada as of April 25th, 2019 are: number 1, giving birth; number 2, COPD and bronchitis; number 3, acute myocardial infarction; number 4, pneumonia; and number 5, heart failure. 2 of the top reasons are severe respiratory illnesses, and 2 are severe cardiovascular diseases. All of those can be complicated by any type of infection, even the common cold, which many coronaviruses turn out to cause. According to some older data compiled by the Canadian government available on canada.ca, from 2008 and 2009 to 2010, we can get a glimpse of the leading causes of deaths and hospitalizations from the ages of less than a year old to over 65 years. In summary, the leading causes of deaths of all ages were: 1, cancer; 2, circulatory diseases; 3, respiratory diseases; 4, nervous system diseases; and 5, mental disorders. The leading causes of hospitalizations for all ages were 1. Circulatory system diseases, 2. Digestive system diseases, 3. Respiratory system diseases, and 4. Cancer. Infectious diseases made the list at number 10 for causes of death and number 9 for hospitalization. So let's break it down by age groups and showing the top leading causes of death from 1 to 5. So when you hear the reporting of who has died, you can look at the bigger picture. And what I'm going to do now is show you this table so you can have a good look. And these are for the leading causes of death. And if you want to pause during the video, you can write down the information yourself, but we'll go on to the next. And then that's followed by the leading causes of hospitalizations from 2009 to 2010, from 1 to 5 per age group. And here. So again, if you watch this video and you can pause and then get a good idea of what the tables are showing. If we look at the reporting again regarding COVID-19, with less than 438 people in hospital, less than 190 critical cases, and 63 deaths, we can ask if this is really a pandemic and if the lockdown measures are truly warranted. Looking at the leading causes of hospitalizations and the number of cases, does it look like Canadian hospitals will be overwhelmed? If 2 of the leading causes of hospitalization as of April 25th, 2019 are COPD and bronchitis and pneumonia, I would hazard a guess that Canadian hospitals are well equipped to treat patients with compromised respiratory tracts. And looking at the data from 2009 to 2010, since respiratory illnesses are number 3 as a cause of hospitalization, even back then, hospitals should be equipped to handle them. However, I would question their capacity to deal with those cases admitted due to the fact that the number 3 leading cause of death in Canada in 2008 was associated with respiratory diseases. But perhaps those admitted to hospital ended up ultimately dying from the combined effect of comorbidities or a hospital-acquired infection. Remember, the leading causes of infectious disease deaths in Canada in 2018 were due to other bacterial diseases. 2,527 out of 4,578 total deaths. That's around half of all infectious disease-related deaths. Healthcare is the 3rd leading cause of death. In the US, side effects from medications given in hospitals kill an estimated 106,000 Americans every year. An additional 7,000 people die every year from receiving the wrong medication by mistake, and 20,000 others die from other hospital errors. Hospitals are dangerous places, and that's not even counting the estimated 99,000 deaths due each year to hospital-acquired infections. Every year, 12,000 Americans die from complications due to surgeries that weren't even necessary in the first place. For those keeping score, that's more than 200,000 people dead from so-called iatrogenic causes, from the ancient Greek iatros, meaning doctor. That's an excerpt from How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger in 2015. But what about in Canada? Maybe our healthcare system isn't so bad. A report from the Patient Safety Institute published in 2017 says otherwise, and quote, over the next 30 years in Canada, within acute and home care settings, there could be roughly 400,000 average annual cases of patient safety incidents, or PSIs, costing around $6,800 per patient and generating an additional $2.75 billion in healthcare treatment costs per year. The PSIs considered and the costs incurred are all preventable. In terms of mortality, PSIs in total, acute and home care combined, rank third behind cancer and heart disease with just under 28,000 deaths across Canada in 2013. This is equivalent to such events occurring in Canada every 1 minute and 18 seconds and a resulting death every 13 minutes and 14 seconds. End quote. If I were looking at those numbers, I would be far more concerned about an epidemic of deaths caused by healthcare than by people contracting COVID-19. I think this is enough information to consider for the moment. My hope is that in reading this, you can see the numbers reported regarding COVID-19 and see the bigger picture. If you haven't read my previous post, which addresses viruses and exposure, please do. The fear that is being generated right now is detrimental. I am concerned for people who are suffering due to the lockdown measures, not just here in Canada and the US, but in countries like South Africa and India. Many people in India pay for the food they eat daily with the wages they earn that day. Without work, they have no money for food. These measures don't really affect people who are well off. We have internet. We have a pantry. We were able to get a savings account and put aside enough for emergencies. We have homes that are not overcrowded, where everyone can have personal space. But this isn't the case for many people. I would say the majority of people globally. It's vital to consider how our actions are impacting others. We talk about being in this together, but we must do so mindfully. And that starts with educating yourself on what is really going on. If we all looked into the matter, we could go about protecting vulnerable groups of people in a far more intelligent manner that doesn't hurt the disadvantaged and create fear, neighborhood policing, and restrictions of human rights. As always, if this helped you at all, please subscribe and share this with anyone else who might benefit. Thank you and have a good day.